you've been involved in one way or another in the family business pretty much since childhood. What are your first memories of working with your father in the business?
Well, that goes back a long way, as you realize, because I was a product of growing up during World War II. I was born in 1935, so I was in the heart of World War II in 41 and 45, and sugar rationing and all the other things that were going on. But I do recall all the times when we were struggling in the before even the Pepsi business, when we had just Orange Crush and some of our other products. And my dad, as you know, started in the poultry and egg business and was putting soft drinks on the back of those poultry trucks going to different grocery stores. And that then a gentleman came by and talked him into taking on the Pepsi franchise just for a small area. Later it was expanded, and it kind of grew from that. But I guess the first experience that I recall was I was down on South Court Street in Marion, Illinois at our original soft drink plant. And I was with my dad, and we were talking about putting forklift trucks on. And because all the truck loading was by hand at that time. And we thought that that was quite a step in progress of talking about using forklifts instead of a regular hand loading of all the trucks.
Your father was in
experience,
oh, I tell you.
Emotional and financial both.
Well, yeah.
Okay, we're back into it.
Okay. Your father was always interested in civic affairs here in Marion, and I'm wondering what, as you grew up and you worked with him in the business, what kind of values did he pass along to you?
Well, you're right. He was mayor of Marion for 12 years and city councilman before that, and always involved in civic affairs, whether it was Rotary Club or whatever it happened to be. And that's the environment I grew up in. And just like I said earlier, that I'm a product of the World War II growth age, and I would go to the rallies with him where they were trying to sell war bonds. They were trying to get scrap collected for the war effort. And so I just, my family was always very much instilled in public service and in being involved. I think that we always talked a great deal about being contributors and being involved in society. And you know, while we're here in life, it's a short amount of time. And we need to do something and accomplish something for the good of all of us. And so I think that's what we tried to do, and I've always thought of it that way, and I've always enjoyed public service very much.
When you started in things, I understand that you worked in just about every position in the company. Was that something that your father wanted you to do, or was it something you both agreed on? Or?
Well, it could have been he was just getting cheap labor too at the time. I'm not sure, but it was something that I think both of us wanted to do, but especially I wanted to do more than him. He kind of let water seek its own level approach, and as much as I wanted to get involved, he would let me, and he wouldn't discourage me, but it was really left pretty much up to me, and the curiosity, I just wanted to learn and wanted to be involved, just like I was saying, on public service. Always wanted to just see what I could do in this life.
What positions did you end up working in here in the company? I've heard everything from working the bottling line to...
Well, you know, that's true. I worked on the bottling line and spent a lot of time on it, enjoyed production, and then later on I've even run the plant a few times, and when I was in high school, I was running the night shift at Pepsi in the summers and that was interesting because I remember when the minimum wage law went to 75 cents an hour, And I went to Dad and I said, I just don't know how we're going to afford paying this kind of wages. And he said, don't worry, son, we'll work it out. We've seen it before. And so you do overcome those problems, and things sure have changed because there's nobody around here these days that makes minimum wage, I'll assure you.
What kind of business philosophy did you develop over the years? This has come from being a very small operation to being one of the largest bottlers in the country of its kind.
Yes. Well, in business, I think it's important to pay attention to details. I think it's important to build character within the organization. I think it starts at the very top and works through an organization. And you have to insist on yourself doing things correctly every day, because a lot of things hit our desk, and a lot of phone calls and a lot of commitments, and you have to make sure that you always do it correctly, and that filters down in your organization. And if you so you need to keep a strong character, and I think it's just the basis of building an organization is the character of the company.
Did your time in the Marine Corps have any influence on that too?
I think that time in the Marine Corps was excellent training, and just like I said earlier, we were always raised to participate and serve your country, and it was a great experience being in the Marine Corps. And as you know, my son served in the Marine Corps also, and it's just been important for us to be participants in this game. And the Marine Corps is a great organization, and it's one of those experiences of life that I'm glad I did it, but I sure wouldn't want to do it again.
Leave it for the younger guys.
That's right, absolutely.
Today, as you look at your business enterprise, how large is it? It's in, what, 5 different states now?
Yes, we're 5 states, and then we've invested in another operation that's in a 6th state. We've had a lot of acquisitions, probably 40 acquisitions in the last 30 years, and we have grown, and it's been a step at a time, and it's, I think, a good way to build a business is a step at a time, because buying a business and borrowing the money and then later on paying for it are the easier steps of the whole operation. Running them correctly, training the people, and building the staff to give the kind of service that you want to give and take care of your customers properly is the hard part.
How has the business changed over the years? You've had a unique opportunity to watch these small companies, and they're back in the day, I'm sure there were dozens of independent bottlers around this area.
Yes.
Now to come up to a point where it enters into the corporate landscape, it's a global economy you're dealing with.
Yes. Well, it's changed enormously, excuse me, but you're still dealing with people, customers and employees, and so that part has not changed, and you need to very much keep a close relationship with both your customers and your employees. The rest of it has changed totally. The automation, the capital that it takes to run a business, the capital it takes to get in a business is unbelievable these days, and that's why it's so very hard to even a small business to get started. The enormous amount of capital and also the enormous amount of complexities of running a business, whether it's the legal aspects, the tax aspects, and it's much more complicated. And it's pretty easy for me because I actually grew up as it was growing, not only the business, but the laws were growing and the technology was growing. So I kind of grew with it and through it. But for somebody to go into it today, it really is extremely complicated.
When did you first get interested in education issues?
Well, I was always appreciative of the value of education, because I believe extremely that opportunity is something that we need to give all our citizens. And so when it was mentioned to me that of the community college legislation that had passed in Illinois back in '67, I believe, '66 or '7, and I started becoming involved in seeing that legislation was passed. And my friend Senator Paul Simon was one of the sponsors of that legislation, and it was a great move on his part and still appreciated. And then I became available for the board of John A. Logan when that was formed, that district, because districts were formed through the whole state. And I became one of the original board members of John A. Logan Community College. And the more I became involved, I could see what great opportunity it gives to people to better themselves and do the things that they want to do.
The community college system for many people is the first foot in the door for so many families to become college educated. It's basically transformed the state of Illinois in a lot of ways.
I think it's one of the major assets that the state has, because the Illinois community college system is the finest community college system in the nation, and it gives our citizens such an opportunity at a reasonable cost, and they still can stay at home and keep all their costs in line, not only the tuition cost, but housing and other costs. And even for ongoing education, it has been so wonderful because you can still hold a job and go to further your education, whatever it is, technical or whatever. Or if in working with the universities, the community colleges have some great university courses that are put on at the community college by the universities, like SIU is very active, and Southern Illinois University has done an outstanding job of working with the community college system and putting on more advanced programs.
Well, you look at how through organizations like the Collegiate Common Market and
Yes.
the ones that work with each other like that, you can take an issue like nursing care or automotive technology and make sure that the programs are getting out to the areas where they need them.
Absolutely. And articulation has certainly been an important project that I worked on for a long time. I'll never forget when I was on the Board of Higher Education that they did a study on articulation of transfer of credits from community colleges to universities and back and forth, and even any other direction to other community colleges and other institutions in Illinois. And it was interesting after they had studied it. They said they'd studied it, I think, for 28 years or something like that, and it was recommended that it needed further study. And needless to say, I got a little concerned and excited and maybe a little too vocal, and so a lot of us got together and we were able to move articulation along and make it progress, because it's not fair to the students, it's not fair to the taxpayers, because remember, the taxpayers have invested heavily in the education of all the students in Illinois, in public education or private education. They invest heavily, and it's not fair to them and the student also not to be able to transfer those credits back and forth. And maybe under encouragement of legislation, we were able to get articulation moving, and to the extent it is today, it's still not perfect, but it's come a long way in the last few years.
But it was a huge challenge, because you're talking about, in the case of community colleges, dozens of them, nearly over a dozen senior higher institutions, colleges and universities, and hundreds, if not thousands, of different courses.
Yes, but all these courses are approved by the Board of Higher Education. Supposedly they're of equal or great standards out there, and it is a great challenge, but the educators have to get together and reach a consensus. And of course, what I suggested, that if they didn't, that we were going to pass legislation to force it. And fortunately, we didn't want to do that and didn't have to do that. So we have made some good inroads, but it's not quite done yet, but they're making good progress.
Well, and all of that happened about the same time I was going through the community college system, and it paid off in the long run.
Yeah, well, because it was to your benefit as a student, and it was the taxpayers' benefit, and everybody wins. But we can't operate education in a vacuum, and people just can't be forced to go to a campus when it doesn't fit their lifestyle, because we have to make it available where they can have the opportunities to improve their life if they have the motivation to do so. Now, if they don't have the motivation to do so, there's nothing anybody can do about that. But we do have the obligation to make it available at a reasonable expense.
The other thing, too, about community colleges that strikes me is not only is it a great place to get your foot in the door for higher education, but they become regional centers for economic development, for a wide variety of cultural events and activities and things. They're really oases, if you will, in a lot of the rural parts of the state of Illinois.
Absolutely. As you know, I was chairman of the Illinois Community College System for 10 years, and I believe strongly in the first word of community colleges. I think community is a very big word to bring those communities together and provide resources that just a part of those communities could not afford. And so the word community college, I think, is a great word. I don't think much of the word junior college, because I sure think junior has grown up, and it is a community college and needs to be treated as such.
Obviously, there was the Community College Act that you worked on and helped get that through. But as this system matured, we saw an explosive growth in these things. Was that partly driven by the economy, partly driven by the new philosophy towards delivering education to people?
I think a combination. There's no question the economy, when the economy is bad, that people do have a tendency to go back, and sometimes they have the time, too much time, to fall back and take courses that they've wanted to do. But I think the availability of the courses, I think that the community colleges have done a nice job of making courses available evenings, Saturdays, Friday afternoons, times that people can work in their schedule. And I certainly encourage all of higher education to do the same, because it's like any other product, where we're talking Pepsi-Cola or what it is. We certainly need to make the product available when the customer wants the product.
There were some other things too, of course, many things that happened on your watch with the community college board and system. You instituted a uniform financial reporting system for budget development.
Yes, absolutely.
I would think that your business sense, your acumen helped in that.
Well, I think it's extremely important that we have great credibility with the public, the voters, the legislators, and the governor's office. And what we did is put a standardized accounting system in the community college system, and where that anyone, it's on the internet, anyone can pull up and compare any of the community colleges by line item of what they're spending, not only in total dollars, but by head count. And so you have the comparison, but then it's up to the local board, because I believe strongly that the way the community college system is structured in Illinois, with strong local boards, is the way it should be. And if the local board wants to put more money into a line item for a good reason that they have, and the community college next door does not, that does not mean one is good and the other is bad. But it shows where they want to put their emphasis. And I think that is good. But I think we have to open up all this to the public and have good public access to build the credibility that we need to build. And I would like to see in public higher education of the universities, I'd like to see a similar system.
It'd be very interesting to see that, and how that would work in Illinois with the way that everything is structured.
It certainly would.
And there's still time to work on that one.
There's always work to be done.
There sure is. There sure is. ask you also about another aspect, the Leadership and Core Value Initiative. What was your thinking on that, and how that would help people and help the areas these places serve?
Well, on leadership and core value, I think in today's society we have our challenges, and needless to say, we're all of different political leanings, so it's hard to agree. But I think that we can basically agree on a few solid values like honesty and integrity. And what we did in structure that, we asked the local colleges in the state of Illinois to ask their students, their faculty, their civil servants to all participate and come up with what they would envision would be good, strong values to encourage in their institution. So we started at the state level with very few guidelines. Just we would like to approach honesty and integrity, but mainly they took it from there and started talking about some of the basic values and how to approach it and how to encourage it. It has been a very successful project, and I guess I'm surprised that we didn't have more opposition. Any opposition, to my knowledge, we did not run into. Everybody reached total agreement that there are some basic values out there that should be talked about.
It's interesting. I've heard Glenn Pichard talk about the idea of a local leadership academy to try to grow new leaders here in southern Illinois, and to keep our young people in this area, keep them from moving on out, making this a better area to live in.
Yeah, well, I think that's an excellent suggestion too, because one of the problems in southern Illinois is that we do not participate as an area enough in the different committees and state government, and et cetera. One of it's the geographic location. It's so hard to get to Springfield from here. It's hard to get to Chicago from here. And transportation is one of the problems. But we as an area have to be more involved in what's going on with the state of Illinois and the committees and other leadership roles, because we don't want them to forget that Illinois has a great asset in southern Illinois, and southern Illinois needs to be a major player in the state.
Yeah, we've got to keep after that because of the way that the districts keep moving northward because of population.
Absolutely, and if we're going to grow and be the area that we can be with the opportunity we have to show some leadership to do that.
I want to talk also about community colleges. That's not the only place that you've given your leadership and you've made philanthropic gifts to universities. What are some of the things that you feel most strongly about in terms of your involvement with, let's say, SIU and other universities in the state?
Well, I just feel very strongly in general about education, especially higher education, and the impact it can have on society. And fortunately, with 6 kids, they've decided to go to school different places, but all within the general area. And automatically that makes us have a lot of interest in Southern Illinois University and Southeast Missouri University and University of Tennessee at Martin and Eastern Illinois University. And so it's not only a personal desire, but as the families got involved in it, it was a natural evolution too.
As you look back over your public life and your business life, what's given you the most sense of personal satisfaction?
Well, the first thing is my family. I think the most important thing that we can do in our lives is still raise a family and a family unit that has good ethics and contributes to society in a positive manner. And that's, I think, our number one job. And all the rest come way down the list. Business and public service compared to family. We've got to do that, and I'm more proud of that than anything, that our 6 kids and shortly 15 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild and I'm very proud of him.
You've still got a long road ahead of you, a lot of things that I'm sure you find interesting, still to be done, work to be done. Is there a challenge that you see on the horizon that you want to get involved with and devote more time to it?
Well, I want to spend some time with my wife, who's having a few health problems with ovarian cancer, and that is a major priority for me. But the other day when I saw Senior President Bush do a parachute jump at 80 years old, it renewed that there is some life left here and some things to accomplish, and I don't expect to be jumping from an airplane or even pushed out of an airplane at 80 years old, but that certainly is, there's some things out there, not only the personal nature but also business and public service that I'd like to accomplish.
One final question. When you learned that you were being nominated as a Lincoln Laureate, what was your reaction to that?
Well, I think the first reaction was one of shock, and the second reaction was very humble and appreciative, because there's been some outstanding citizens of Illinois that have been so honored, and to be recognized for that from being at from this area. And remember, we're just a soft drink bottler in Marion, Illinois. I've lived my whole life in Marion, Illinois, and we've been married 45 years. And you know, we want to stay in Southern Illinois, and we're not going anyplace. But you know, my business is just selling soft drinks. It's not anything that's space science. But I'm very proud of still of the job we have done. So I was very humbled by the experience, but very appreciative, because to be honored like that for myself and my family was quite a privilege, and I very much appreciate it.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you about or touched upon that you want to make sure that we get on the record?
Well, I don't think so. I think you've done a wonderful job with it, and but I can't tell you enough of how much that Southern Illinois and Southern Illinois University and the opportunities that I have had in public service, how rewarding that's been for me and my family. And we've enjoyed that and gained much from that in many ways, by the great people that we've dealt with and all that we have learned. And I would always encourage people to get involved, because you gain a lot.